But Joseph, do you remember when I texted our group chat and I was like, guys, do you see this hit 'em thing happening on
Yeah,
Twitter
yeah,
right
yeah.
now? We need to
Yeah.
do a compilation. And we
Yes.
tried I think we tried to get it started within the first 24 hours,
Just
I'm pretty sure.
just within our Discord and stuff.
The original goal behind what I wanted to do was I wanted in like 2 to 3 days, I wanted to do just like a Tabula Rasa sounding one. And then I saw, I want to say about 3 or 4 days later, that Machine Drum Travis and Drew Daniel from Matmos, who did the original tweet, I saw on Twitter that they were working together on an official compilation. And then I think in the replies, either Joseph or I said, "Oh, we're doing one too." And then Travis, who we've hung out with a few times, he just kind of slid into my DMs. It was kind of like, "Yo, would you be down to collaborate on this?" And presented a lot of other interesting opportunities. And
Yeah.
Joseph and I immediately were like, yes.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I think part of the fun of putting this compilation together was showcasing all the different kind of styles that people reached for. We started noticing like little subgenres of hit 'em kind of happening at the same time too. Like there's like
Yeah.
the stuff that sounds like breakcore, there's the stuff that's like halftime, and then there's the stuff that's more melodic.
Yeah, that was cool, all of the variation that people kinda like the parameters themselves, like, we've been talking about this since putting this together, but, like, the nature of the constraints of, like, a weird time signature, like, I don't know, pop music isn't crunched out sounds, like, it's a little just that parameter itself kind of already puts this kind of out on the edges of popular music, but, like, it attracted a certain type of producer with who like the type of person who sees that and goes, yeah, I have an idea for this. Like yeah, we got so much variety, but it was all kind of within this really interesting kind of realm of like this brand new thing that we were all like hyped about. That was like probably the most exciting part of it for me, is just that selection mechanism of like, it's not like send me a trap beat or something. It's like
Yeah.
very specific, but also very kind of open-ended parameters. And it was just this kind of really nice little thing that just ignited, I mean, at least whatever, 250 people with like really nice submissions. And then there's other compilations that have come out and just clips I've heard people haven't gotten around to finishing. And it's like, it's cool. I haven't really seen something like that happen in this kind of concentrated of a way. Like we've had those waves of like, somebody makes a sick song and somebody calls it future bass, and then like like a year later we've got like 600 new future bass producers or whatever like the wave is. But this one was like straight up and then like instantly kind of part of the conversation or whatever, like genre wise. Yeah.
We were very excited to kind of get on it because I feel like in a way it was what Tabula Rasa Records was kind of founded on, where it was the specific type of producer that I feel like got
Yeah.
very, very excited about the
Yeah.
onset of Hit'em.
Yeah.
It's like someone who is kind of like me and Joseph, where we love
Yeah.
experimental music, we love dance music, electronic music. We grew up with like trap music, future bass, SoundCloud stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And now we're listening to people like Fortet Aphex, Kelly Lee Owens, all these experimental people. But we still have this like dance background that we tend to like fall back on a lot still. You have producers that take their art and experimentation very seriously, but also the presentation of an act of making music is often just pure exploration and fun
Yeah.
for them. And that's exactly the type of person that would see a tweet like that. It's kind of crazy when you think about it. Yeah, because it was really hot for, I want to say, like 2 or 3 weeks. But like a lot of the ones I clicked on just felt like kind of hardcore breakcore, but with an extra beat on top of it. And I was like, this is cool, but I can't listen to this outside of like a novelty. The first person I saw was like EPROM, like, quote tweeting it and being like, guys, I think I made Hit'em. And then I was like, why is this actually really, really good? And why do I actually want to make something like that? And obviously like thousands of other producers on Twitter had that idea as well. We have a lot of people on this compilation that don't have Spotify profiles and like don't really use SoundCloud or anything. These are just people who like lurk on Twitter, saw this thing, and were like, hey, I'm gonna give it a shot. It's not even just like a sound design thing or like a technical thing. Like a lot of these like people that don't have a presence like are also really good songwriters. Like the grooves are really, really good. Travis and
Hmm.
I were talking during a few meetings about like how DJable do you think some of these like songs will be, and
Yeah,
surprisingly, especially like a lot of the halftime ones are very very mixable. I
Yeah.
feel like,
I've been trying with a bunch of these. Yeah.
yeah.
Was it challenging selecting tracks for the compilation, and what surprises did you encounter when selecting tracks from the artists who submitted?
We did talk about this a bit already, but like the short answer to whether it was difficult or not is yeah, it was very difficult, and also just like listening to. I mean, we get lots of good demos all the time. People are sending me, works in progress and stuff. So I'm always listening to submissions of some sort, like partially finished music, and trying to kind of like imagine what the rest of it is going to be like. But this all just came in like this tsunami of like insane music. Just yeah, I mean, obviously really good stuff as well. But yeah, it was difficult to wade through all of it. Excuse me, and like a lot of fun, and it kind of, I don't know, the surprises we've talked about too. But it was like I really was surprised at the degree of variation that people came in with. It was like, you hear three or four submissions back to back, and they, like Ramon was saying earlier, it's some sort of like core stuff, and you're like, okay, this is what people are sending in, and then you listen to like three more songs, and it's like, yo, I don't know if I've heard music like this before.
Yeah.
Which is always a feeling I love having, and is hard to come by. But it was definitely something that um, this, like, there were a couple moments of that where I was just like, this might be brand new, or I'm just like not that tapped in this kind of arena, but like this is new to me, and this is really cool.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah. In addition to what Joseph said, I think the thing that surprised me the most is listening to hit him outside of the confines of Twitter. Do you know what I mean? Um, Twitter is a very the way that I use Twitter and a lot of people do is it's when you're not like doom scrolling or trying to figure out like news and what's actually going on. Um, a lot of people, me included, love Twitter just because of the amount of like I don't know, for lack of a better word, like shit postery that goes on there.
Yeah.
And just watching people do ridiculous stuff online is just in text form, in video form, just never ceases to amaze me. And so when you hear a music clip on something like Twitter, you're listening to it in the confines of this has to be worth my time because I'm on a social media platform that's supposed to be giving me like some, I don't know, enjoyment or some other inherent value, whatever Twitter has left to offer, in 2024. But when you're curating for a compilation, there's simultaneously a level of we're trying to figure out how this compilation is going to form. Like right now, when you have like 250 tracks or however many submissions we got, there's a there's an element of we have to wait and see. We have to see kind of what connections are forming. We have to see what the sound of what people it's going to be, because at the end of the day, this compilation was an open community effort, So it's simultaneously listening to the music as it is, whilst also seeing the connection and digesting it as a form of music. We especially working with, Drew Daniel, the person who had the original hit him tweet, and Travis Machine Drum, who is like so tapped into like what the community wants and is doing and stuff. Like we knew that like there was a lot of not necessarily pressure, but there was a lot of expectation where like this is the hit 'em compilation,
Yeah.
and I think going through all the submissions, we really, really had to, I don't know, think like pretty hard about the ways that um tracks would work not only on their own merit but also alongside each other. Because at the end of the day, this is kind of like a zeitgeist of who knows if like hit 'em is going to become an actual like scene or not with its own aesthetic. But at the end of the day, we we kind of all almost on our own decided this compilation is we want this to be the representation of like the flash in the pan moment, you know.
Hidden seems to thrive on the experimental nature of it. So, how do you see this compilation shaping the future evolution of the genre? And do you think it will solidify certain trends or open up new avenues for exploration, or could it shortly die after this?
Yeah, it's a good. I mean, it's something we've been talking about, like, I mean, us in this conversation, but also like while putting the compilation together and kind of while it was happening too. It was like a lot of moments like this happen in experimental music where like uh somebody figures out how to make some crazy sound, and then you hear it in 80 songs that come out the next month. And that's just, you hear that in every genre, right? That's just how things go when somebody figures something out. Um, I I don't know if this is gonna become like a lasting genre or anything. But I, I kind of I kind of hope it's like, I don't know, if it's not a lasting genre, then it's definitely going to be the start of something where, like, I don't know, my hope is that like people start like listening to their dreams a little bit closer for very specific um instructions. Like there's some good stuff in there. You should listen to those, and maybe you'll have like a brand new genre come out of that.
I mean, Aphex Twin
But
keeps saying that he got music in his sleep. He hit songs in his sleep, and then he could make them the next day.
Yeah, and that's like, I mean, that's part of a huge part of what we love about experimental music, is just that openness to like experimenting for real. Yeah, on the nose there, but like that's there's room for that, and there's like a space for this type of thing to happen and to continue happening, whether it's more hit 'em or something brand new that we're all gonna, you know, have this same kind of moment about in the next month or a couple years from now, whatever.
Yeah.
I think the only thing I want to add is that as a person like who's been kind of DJing live and like been in, I've been involved a lot more in the LA kind of DJ and electronic scene a lot more in the last like 5 to 7 years or so. And I used to play the kind of thing of like what genre is going to be up next type of thing.
Okay.
It's a lot different in dance music versus experimental music, but in dance music I find the whole thing kind of futile because everything is so sectioned off now, with how different everybody is culturally and stuff. And um like a tech house culture has a way different culture from like a bass music culture. And even in bass music, there's the subcultures between the different subgenres, which is so much I don't even bother anymore, like to predict what's up next. Like it's all so subjective. But with experimental music like this, um, because it's so open-ended, I find the prospect of hit 'em extremely interesting because honestly, there are some hit 'em songs on this compilation that I've listened to like 20 or 30 times when I just want to, you know, visit like a specific mood. And I can just imagine, like, I don't know, who knows if there will be some like 13-year-old kid who hears like a hit 'em track for the first time, and that's like his like teenage connection, Maybe this kid listens to Hit 'em for the next 10 years, grows up on Hit 'em, and becomes like the guy to inspire a whole generation of other kids to make Hit 'em. You just never know what you're gonna set off by releasing like good music in the world. But like, I think the possibility of that excites me a lot more than like Hit 'em being like the next big thing or everybody starts making Hit 'em. I think the idea that like just a couple of like kids could get inspired to like latch onto this hit 'em genre as like their hyper fixation or the thing that they love, like, is really exciting to me.
Actually, that's one thing. Who would you say is the biggest or like the biggest name on this compilation? Would it be EPROM?
I would say it's a tie, yeah, between EPROM, Machine Drum, uh Yeah, someone, one of the Hit 'em artists, actually, the artist on this compilation, did the soundtrack to the new Assassin's Creed game, and he also did the soundtrack to 13 Reasons Why on Netflix, which is
Yeah.
kind of interesting.
Okay.
But he makes great soundtracks, and I was like, this is
Yeah.
why I don't know what made you decide to wake up and make Hit 'em, but it's really cool.
Exactly. That's
Yeah.
like such a cool thing about this is like a person whose job it is to write specific types of music saw this insane prompt and went, yeah, I'm gonna use all of these skills that I, refine every day working on my craft and make something ridiculous and silly. And his track in particular is like really refined and dialed in, but also just playing with the edges of the prompt a little bit
Does it have a
in a really
soundtrack?
really cool way.
Does it
Yeah.
have a soundtracky kind of feel to the track, or is it completely different?
I, I don't get soundtrack vibes from it personally. It's got sort of it has a as conventional of a structure as you can get. Like it kind of
Hmm.
is to me at least. I've gone back to it a handful of times, but it kind of feels like a dance track, kind of tricking you into listening to a hit 'em song, if that makes sense.
Okay.
Where it like the way the synths are put together and like the structure of it is like, oh, I'm listening to a regular song, and then it starts to get a little weird. It's great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I actually saw EPROM live about 2 weeks ago. He did like his normal, like absolutely batshit insane crazy set, and with like a lot of jungle and stuff. And then he said, gets on the mic. He says, "I have one song left for you guys. One of my good friends had a dream about a genre, and it's called Hit 'em." And then when he says Hit 'em, the crowd starts like yelling. You can hear it in the video and stuff. And he's like, it's in 212 BPM, 5/4 time, super crunched out sounds. And then someone in the front row yells, "Thank you, Dream Girl." And then he's like, and I was like, what is happening? Like, what is going on here? I loved the EPROM Hit 'em track as the set closer because it's just so. After you've been hearing 4/4 music, hearing a track like that in a club setting in front of, like, I don't know, like however many people it was, and hearing like the bass rattle you at like that fast of a frequency, that
Yeah.
fast of a BPM. It's so like I've just never experienced anything like that. And I don't know, that's why it felt fitting to have EPROM on the compilation, you know. It wouldn't feel complete without him.
Do you see more viral genres appearing like this, on Twitter or on other social media platforms? Do you feel like that could be a possibility?
I hope so. Yeah. That's kind of what I was saying earlier. Like people, if they have some wacky idea for some constraints, like share it with the world. You never know what's gonna happen. Like I know we were talking to Drew and he just like had this dream and was like, I'm gonna put this on Twitter without a second thought really. Um so yeah, I hope this keeps happening. It's a really
Yeah.
kind of crazy phenomenon. That like yeah, like we've been talking about, like I've never really seen this kind of thing happen in this way with music. Um, but yeah, I hope so. And not your standard kind of viral genre where it's just like making a song fast for a video or whatever. Like some real innovation. I would love to see.
Every so often on Twitter, I'll see it happen. I remember, and I'll write it down when it's especially funny. I remember earlier in this year, people were trying to bring back jerk beats, if you know what those are. It's like 100 BPM, like kind of hip hop beats that like if you've heard the song "You're a Jerk," it's like an old hip hop song, and it's just really silly, kind of like Soldier Boy era type of stuff.
Yeah.
And people were putting like the craziest things on top of jerk beats, like these ambient synths and like big bass sounds, and also just like big piano rave stabs, and that was fun. It lasted for like, a week or two. um I don't follow like hip hop that well, so I don't know if jerk beats actually caught on after that, but I thought it was really funny. I don't know, it doesn't matter to me if things get like legitimized or whatever. Like I don't think everything
Mm,
needs like a compilation to be exciting or important. All that matters is it like inspires you, you know what I mean?
yeah.
Mm.
Like inspires you in some way, either to make music or to see music in a different way, you know? Because that's where a lot of our favorite music comes from, you know? It's like it's what you know, but it's a little different.
Do you think Hidden will have a
I,
lasting impact on electronic music? What do you think would need to happen for it to become a mainstay?
very interesting. I was listening to a Fortet interview because of course I was.
course
And
you
he talks about how in
It was
the
during was it the tsunami video, I think?
oh yeah, we had a tsunami little promo video, and I was watching Fortet in the office.
Yeah. Anyway, sorry, keep going.
Yeah. So I was listening to a Fortet interview. I think it was on BBC Radio, and he talks about how a dilemma that we have in the modern kind of electronic club landscape is that due to like things like smartphones and people taking videos and like sharing them and talking about them instantaneously and things like that, um, genres are kind of, you know, it's hard for them to stay localized in one place and kind of like develop on their own and figure itself out on its own, you know. As soon as like something crazy's happening, people are talking about it and like sharing it, and people are like shazamming things in the club and figuring stuff out live. So what I've always found to be the indicator of what starts a genre or a movement, it's one, it needs to be defined and actually like started by like a group of people. Like there needs to be like almost a conscious decision of like this is the name we've been given, you know, either by like ourselves or like an article or something like that. Either culturally relevant, you know, we roll with it and we represent it, and the representation is like a big part of it. But also the important thing is like as you continue pushing it, like it's gonna travel to, you know, other people that have a little bit of a different idea of what you think that genre is, you know, and you just need to not really be like butthurt about it. You just need to, you know, accept that this is the stem of the idea that you started. And at least that's what I believe leads to like a healthy scene. And then every like little subgenre has little things like the way that the people behave, you know, often the same socially. If you hear like, you know, how like a house music show is gonna go versus like a trap music show, you already have like
Mm.
mentally an idea of what the people who like that kind of music are gonna be like and what they're gonna do, you know. So I feel like Hit 'em in general, if I had to answer that, it needs to catch on a little bit more in the real world. And there needs to be, I don't know, dedicated heroes of Hit 'em, you know, people who are representing it in its like most raw kind of like bog standard definition form.
I feel like if we need to have someone who kind of like some artist that kind of makes Hidden has done their own thing, and you know, they kind of blow up to kind of solidify the genre, and that they like, you know, they play it at their shows, and they are I don't know, they kind of do they're kind of like Lil Texas, I guess, where they kind of new to it, but they kind of have blown up, you know, just
Yeah.
out of nowhere in a way, and Hidden just becomes a kind of a mainstay in their show, and then all of a sudden other people are DJing it and playing stuff like that. I feel like that's something that can solidify the genre pretty well as well, rather than
Yeah.
relegated to Twitter and Bandcamp compilations and stuff like that.
Yeah. Yeah, well, when like just you saying that, and then when Ramon was talking, I was thinking about there's like another other than like Hidden becoming like a proper genre, or I guess you said scenes as well. There's kind of the PC music phenomenon where people who know what that means know exactly what it means, and you can hear those influences throughout. You know, you can hear ripples of it in pop music and in hip hop and stuff. But you know, there's no PC music drop down on the
No.
genre selector in your, you know, whatever. Just from talking to Drew more about the dream, it was I mean, I associate the visuals that he described like this grave covered in slime, and I think the cover kind of perfectly encapsulates what the genre kind of feels like.
What I find really interesting is First of all, if you didn't know, the artist who did the cover art, Robert Beatty, he did the artwork for like Tame Impala Currents, most famously, One O Tricks Point Never albums, a lot of Matmos's album covers. That's how they know each other. Some of the alternative Weekend like album covers that are more like kind of retro but also futuristic. And I remember when we were on a call with Drew one time when we were talking about how he wanted to break away from like this anime girl kind of like distorted sad girl like breakcore aesthetic. We were of course drawn to the grave of slime that Joseph talked about, but also the dream aspect itself. When I look at this cover, it's very hazy, it's very surreal, especially with the slime kind of coming out of it. If you look at the artwork of the grid, and it's actually a 5/4 grid. Another visual reference we were actually thinking of using. There's one artist goes by Giant Claw. His real name is Keith Rankin, and his artwork is very, very surreal. He has an album called Mirror Guide, and when you look at it, it's a digital painting of a cloaked kind of mysterious shade figure, but inside of an airplane where all the seats have been taken out. And that's kind of the surrealism that I really, really feel like works with this genre, because it's a very Keith Rankin is very, his art style has been very influential in this subgenre of vaporwave called utopian virtual, which is all about like, taking aesthetics of what a utopian kind of world, at least the 2000s version of it, the way we envision it would be like, but in a surrealist, slightly Lovecraftian kind of way, that feels like a dream, but also it's so like pleasant to look at. You don't even really notice what's going on. And I feel like that level of like artwork and surrealism also would have done extremely, really, really well for like the Hit 'Em compilation.
IDM has often been labeled as music for the mind rather than the body. Do you believe it's a similar case with Hit 'Em?
I think this is equally for the mind and for the body. It's not, it's not as conventionally danceable, let's say, as a lot of dance music or even some IDM that follows more like conventional structures. But like, I don't know, there's something about being at like an IDM kind of show where like that feeling you get in your body when the music is, produced in such a way that like the way that IDM is made often with I won't say that like danceability is an afterthought, but it's not quite, as front and center intentionally as, like a, four on the floor like club track or whatever. I feel like Hit 'Em has a very similar kind of like I'm moving a little bit to these songs. I'm not gonna lie to you. There's a lot of energy in them, and you do feel that in your body, which is cool.
A lot of IDM, like especially like for example the drum and bass inspired stuff, like drill and bass, things like Square Pusher and some of Aphex Twin's like early 2000s stuff. It does very, very clearly come from like dance music structures.
Yeah.
Some of like the AFX stuff, even like some of his most experimental stuff has like this like kind of electro or hip hop kind of beat undertone kind of going on to it. And but I think what makes that music of IDM more for the head rather than the body is just like the way that things are mixed, where like the kicks might not be as like, they might be crunchy, but they're not like made to be danced to, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And the kicks might be four to the floor, but it's more to like kind of, they might be like soft in the mix or something. But I think what I find interesting about Hit 'Em, and you can hear it especially in like the EEPROM track, a lot of these grooves, because they're so crunched out and so loud and distorted, like a lot of them it kind of sounds like jazz, where like there is and we very clearly look for this. Any track in the Hit 'Em compilation, I felt like had an extremely distinct pulse going on to it, a very, very steady pulse. I feel like just instantly gave it so many points. Just because you add a 4 to the floor kick in 5/4 time doesn't mean it has a pulse. There are some, like Joseph said, there are some Hit 'Em tracks where I'm just like grooving. I'm just like, I understand. I'm nodding my head like a lot, obviously when it's really fast, it's a lot more of a stimulation type of thing. But some of these melodies were written with like very very specific kind of like it's a lot more heady. It's not like as like easy to follow and repetitive as like a 4 to 4 beat. But for example, with the track I made, like I even if I just have this like melody kind of running in the background, I can still like kind of hum it to myself. I still understand like the way it resolves and stuff, and I understand like the way the beats go up and down. Whether it's dancey or not. I think for anybody who's having trouble kind of listening to some of the hit 'em stuff, I would just let yourself kind of sit with it and like really try to find the 5 pulse. If you need help, go 1 2 3 1 2 1 2 3 1 2. I feel like that's EPROM actually DM'd me that advice. I was like, I need help on this hit 'em thing, and he said 1 2 3 1 2, and then make the 1 2 a little bit more Philly. And I was like, oh, okay.
Considering the genre's inherent challenge for listeners, I guess with wrapping your head around that 5/4 time and everything. Do you see a place for neurodiverse experiences in the audience? And how does Hit 'em engage and challenge those with different cognitive experiences, the way they listen to music?
This entire genre kind of does feel to me like a neurodiverse experience. Just because you have, I don't know, some of my favorite producers and like the most talented people I get to um you know like listen to music from are kind of coming from that perspective. I think maybe you're looking more for like the side of things where there's like it might be overstimulating for some people, but like I think it might also have the opposite effect where like I don't know, for me, like if I'm heavily overstimulated and I put on like some noise music, things tend to get kind of quiet.
Okay.
Like I hope that's the type of experience people will have with this kind of genre. It's impossible to say, but like uh because of the kind of like different conventions and stuff, and the kind of almost like maximal way some of these tracks are produced, even though they're like very well refined. Yeah, it's a great question I hadn't even thought about, but like I do think it delivers an experience that can hopefully bring a lot to a lot of different types of people. Yeah.
I mean, Joseph's answer is pretty much my answer. I think the only thing I would add is, like I think breakcore and a lot of quote unquote internet genres do tend to lean towards and almost sometimes rely on like a very hyper fixated fan base, and
Yeah.
there's something extremely beautiful about that. And I think what I like about Hit 'em, in regards to the neurodiverse experience is that like, um, it's another, you could say it's like another sub layer of like, I don't know, breakcore and other like really fast, hard dance music, but it's also so specific and like Joseph said, so diverse
Yeah.
that like, like varying degrees of like, I don't know how to say this, like mental kind of like whatever the chemical concoction is your brain that reacts to different like stimuli,
Mm.
there's hit 'em that's like extremely overstimulating and bangs your head against the wall. That might be great
Yeah.
in a certain scenario for certain people. There's hit 'em that's like very gorgeous and stripped back. Like the end of the compilation is this almost like Jay Dilla 5/4 beat, and
Yeah.
I just find myself listening to that all the time because I know what I like with my brain and my kind of like circumstances. You know what I mean? Like, yeah. And I think there's something beautiful about that. Yeah.
In a time where underground music is often commodified by the mainstream, how will you ensure that Hidden remains raw and true to its roots? Or if you even want it to remain true to its roots, I guess.
Obviously the genre and this whole phenomenon has a life of its own, and it is to everybody like everybody has their own kind of like experience of it and everything. Um, I, I kind of maybe optimistically think that because of how like specific it is, it's a little bit not immune, but maybe there's a little bit of defense against commodification there.
Yeah.
Like you're not gonna get a now that's what I call hit 'em kind of like I guess that's what we're making. We should have called it that. That's funny.
That's what I call hit 'em.
And just make like a new one every year and just like yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think all of the artists that are contributing to this are doing a great job of making sure that the genre stays true to its roots. But like I I don't know, like Ramon, we talked a little bit about this, but I kind of see what we're trying to do here is like with this compilation, just kind of capturing that initial flash in the pan moment, document it, catalog it, and represent it in a way that people can, reflect back on and um, yeah, continue to have those whatever those experiences are of it, continue to have those. So like, I think I think it's kind of unlikely to be commodified, but also like if it does happen to make its way out, I think it still will have a very strong like tie to like the underground and the experimental, um in the in the same way that big artists who like your Bjorks and your Arcas and like these artists that have a bit of breakthrough and have production credits here and there, but also are still very much experimental and pushing boundaries and things like that. That's my hope, at least. Yeah.
Hmm. I think it's interesting because while we're trying to capture a flash in the pan, we also made the deliberate decision not to try to release this as quickly as possible. We made the deliberate decision to really take our time with this, really curate it, get it mastered so it all like sounds like cohesive and stuff, and also present it in like, in a great way. And also to donate the proceeds to the Musicians Foundation, of course.
Mhm.
And I think to answer your question, I feel like I don't see I agree with Joseph. Like it's so broad and it comes from such an experimental place because of who's associated with it, like
Yeah.
Drew Daniel Matmos and stuff like has talked about it at length to like, the Guardian, like NPR and stuff. But it's treated as more of like a music prompt kind of trend, in a very, very interesting way. And Drew obviously has very, very, very intelligent academic takes and very interesting cultural takes about it too. Um, um, so I would love to hear how he answers this question,
Mhm.
in general. But I think the mainstreamification of Hit 'em would be, I would look at it as like kind of like if it does actually happen, I'd think of it as like an oh wow moment because it's like, how did this even happen? Like, how did we get here? Type of thing. Not in like a snarky type of way, but more in like a. It's interesting that this cultural connection happened, and it has reached a wide audience. One thing I was going to mention that Joseph reminded me of is that some of the actual serious discourse we've seen around Hit 'em, like on Twitter, has been about like whether Hit 'em with specifically about the 212 BPM. Some people like have argued that if it's halftime 106 BPM and 5/4 that it's not Hit 'em type of thing. And yeah, Tice from Noisia, Tice from Noisia is a good friend of ours. He he has some takes on Hit 'em that I think obviously are very much rooted in love and stuff like that, and just a general interest in everything, He hasn't heard the compilation yet, but I think he's not one of the only people that I feel like has had that opinion,
Mm.
So I don't know. I love that people have opinions about him, like just
Mm.
more than anything, I guess.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
Do you think Fred again could make a hidden track?
oh yeah, 100%.
And should. Yeah.
It should,
He
yes.
should.
He should.
He should call it hit him and tag us in his story.
Yes. Fred, do you want to whip
Joseph,
up a track quick? We'll put it on the compilation,
Joseph, do you?
Yeah, give us a call.
I have a question, Joseph. Do you see us really releasing more hit him in the future? Like, let's say, I don't know, that 13-year-old kid or whatever I mentioned earlier, who like cut his teeth on hit him when he was like 13. Now he's like a god at fucking FL Studio 23 or whatever, and he just sends us this album of hit him and stuff.
Yeah.
Like, isn't that the most exciting thing ever? Wouldn't you want to release that? I mean, especially
Yeah, dude.
considering our place with this compilation, you know what I mean? Like,
Yes.
yeah.
100%. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's the other. I know you'll agree with this because we've talked about it, but like so much of this is what like is like that scenario is like exactly what we're trying to do with this label is like enable and create moments like that and opportunities like that for artists to do things a little bit differently and still have the ability to kind of forge their own path forward without a lot of the as much as we can like the trappings of the industry that's wrapped around this art form that we all love. So like yeah, I'd release more hit 'em tomorrow if we get some more fucking bangers like we've been getting. Like yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Actually, you said there were 250 submissions or so, and then how many tracks total are there on the compilation?
27.
27. Okay.
Yeah.
That'd be hard to narrow down.
Yeah. It was rough. We have like 11 spreadsheets of like notes, and yeah, it's good stuff, man. Yeah.
Do you think that a lot of the tracks that didn't make it could make it onto like a future, release or compilation or anything like that?
I need to give them another good run. But yeah, I'd be down for it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely on the table. Yeah.
Yeah, the next compilation. Now that's what I call hit 'em with all of the
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's what I was gonna say.
Yeah.
Well, next year we'll do that's what I call hit 'em too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We could do hit 'em the remixes. That could be fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Remix album.
Possibilities are endless, just like we planned.
That's another thing that could. This is really silly. Another thing that could lead to the quote unquote viability of hit 'em is once we start getting like hit 'em remixes of like Zed Clarity or like something like that. Can you imagine?
True.
I don't know how.
Yes.
I don't know how you would do it, but some 15-year-old's gonna make it happen. Like I said, like yeah. Now that if you include this video and they fucking like I don't know, put in the YouTube comments or whatever, then like someone's ridiculous enough to do that because that's how this whole thing started. Like someone just said something and then it happened.
Someone
Like,
please make a hit 'em remix of Clarity.
Yeah. Tag us.
Do you think there's a cultural appetite for music that is intentionally disorienting, like hit 'em? And what does this say about the current state of electronic music? That's probably a bit too broad at the end there, but like
no, this is good.
Yeah.
Yes, I think absolutely there is, and we were talking about hyperpop earlier, and there's on the harder side of the hyperpop kind of realm, there's absolutely an appetite for lack of a better word, I'll call it like high contrast music that's very intense and that like people are mostly listening to on AirPods on the train or in loud kind of built environments.
I watched a YouTube video from Ben Jordan talking about like the software of Aphex Twin, and at the end of the video, he talks about why he found Aphex Twin so inspiring and why he wonders if something like Aphex could exist in the modern era. Because back then, he tells a story about in the 2000s, he had this, parasocial relationship to Aphex Twin because dance music was so quote unquote cheesy and like dancey and like housey and stuff at the time, the percolator and all that. And then Aphex Twin
Mm.
was like the key to him realizing electronic music can be whatever you want it to be. And he talks about a story about how he bought I forget which album it was, but he talks about how he didn't understand this one Aphex Twin album. He bought the CD, but because he spent money on it, he had the patience to kind of sit with it and
Yeah.
kind of
Mm.
try it again. And he
Mm.
wonders if that's even really possible in an era like Spotify, where if you encounter something weird, you could never ever see it again. But I think what I love about Hit 'em and this whole movement is the fact that it originated on something like Twitter, where it's like this feels like this digital hellscape. It's all these like alpha male fucking like influencers and like literal fascism going on there sometimes, you know what I mean? For there to be like this movement that everybody's talking about in electronic music and everybody saw it for like a straight month, you know, and
Yeah.
like the fact that it's on like Pitchfork and NPR and stuff speaks to like how many people knew that was going on. I think it does give me a lot of hope that like there is a patience to understand this music and a case of like for this genre with this exact prompt to kind of exist. And it feels like people are just waiting for the thing that will make it click with them. And I think that's what makes this like, compilation so exciting to me. You know what I mean? I feel like there's so much variety on here, and like the level of talent is like absurd. So like yeah, this music is very disorienting and stuff, but it's also very rooted in many different types of genres and cultural pathways that we can point to, but presented in a way, like Joseph said, that's so like music like this has probably never existed before. And I think that's the part that people will find very exciting.
Yeah, and it's like something like you were saying that this came out of Twitter of all places, and it also kind of couldn't have really come from anywhere else, but it's like a glimmer of like structured kind of creative positivity coming out of, you know, this place that is often not particularly inspiring, let's say.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes it is in all of the good things, of course.
Electronic music is often shaped by the environments it's played in. What cultural spaces or settings do you think could become home to Hit 'em, and what could the environment look like? Like, for example, headphones or the club, or you know.
Like we were saying, it feels like it lives so online. It was crazy to see EPROM play it out, just the videos that I saw live, and to see that response. But I do think it's going to have a life in people's headphones while they're kind of exploring digital spaces. Is what it feels like to me. But I do hope that this compilation and the artists who've contributed to it kind of help push things along. And like I was talking to my friends about doing like a modular Hit 'em night somewhere where like people are locked into a 5/4 groove and you're not allowed to change the BPM on any of your hardware, but you just improvise. And like I think the parameters of it are they're such that you can do things like that. And I would, you know, it would make me so happy to see sort of instantiations of the like, you know, live or, you know, in digital spaces as well. People kind of continuing to push it and just explore.
Yeah, I'd agree with what Joseph said. Like people just willing to try out something very, very new. Right now, it would feel right at home in like a very intimate kind of experimental, almost like artsy kind of space, in my opinion, where people are very excited to listen to like, I don't know, like 30 minutes of ambient music or like 30 minutes of someone live coding while someone like, you know, does a interpretive dance on top of it, you know, things like that. In Los Angeles, there's a big DIY space like for a lot of experimental artists, like very small IDM artists, deconstructed club artists, people doing like algo rave, live coding, you know, performance art and stuff. I can see like Hit 'em kind of fitting into those spaces. Yeah, and that's the stuff I find very exciting, you know, because the visual around a music often is the first interpolation of the music. Like you almost can't separate the first image of the music with where you first heard it. So I feel like spaces like for experimental art would be very, very powerful for getting Hidden to kind of connect with like a new audience.
Beyond the technical aspects, what is it about Hidden that excites you the most? What are your hopes and predictions for the future of the genre?
Yeah, I'll come back to the kind of a similar thing I was saying earlier. I think that this like the moment kind of around Hidden is what's exciting to me, and like seeing this huge burst of a very particular type of creativity is just so exciting, and not something you see happen in this way very often. And I hope there's more of that. Um, I think like all of the whatever cultural, environmental stuff going on in people's lives, like these moments where people get to, and I'm saying these like I can think of other Hidden type moments, but like this Hidden type moment, I think this like prompt gives some like people a moment of like purpose and direction that like feels very playful. Like it's so much more fun than a lot of things that are going on in people's lives, and we see that with like some of the people who've submitted they're taking a break from their day job writing music, or their craft to follow this prompt, and that's like so exciting.
Yeah, I don't know. Like I've said many times, my only hope is that it inspires somebody, and maybe it'd be insane if Hidden becomes their calling and they become like, I don't know, the Jesus Christ of Hidden, and spread the word to everybody. That would make me very, very happy in a weird way, knowing we had a very, very small part in whatever their success may be, hypothetically.
Mhm.
Yeah, I don't know. That's what's keeping me alive, I guess. And just having a new kind of term. I love when you like quote unquote in terms kind of come in, where if you say you know about Hidden and you know what it is, you're just like a specific type of person that I already
Yeah, true.
kind of like already. You know what I mean? Yeah, even if I don't know, even if like Hidden hypothetically, I don't think this will happen, but let's say Hidden dies after this and everyone's like, yeah, this album is great, but no one decides to do Hidden ever again. I would still be happy knowing that like we created, I don't know, had some part in a moment that people can kind of like talk about,
So after we recoup our fairly minimal expenses for distribution and mixing mastering services, once we hit that threshold and break even, all of the um, revenue generated from this on streaming and digital sales are going to the Musicians Foundation, and they provide funding for musicians. Pretty straightforward, but they musicians can apply all across. It might be global, but it's definitely across the United States if artists are needing some extra financial support, and they just give out grants to artists who need it. So professional working artists can apply, and yeah, they're doing a great thing. So we're happy to work with them on this.
Amazing.
So I have a side tangent really quickly. I was looking up. I was on Matmos's Wikipedia page, and there's a Hidden section now on Wikipedia.
Ooh.
It doesn't have a page, but Jozef,
Not yet.
we should I'll hit you on the side. We should make a Hidden Wikipedia page.
Yes.
There's enough
I don't
articles
know how
about it.
to do that. Yeah, that's cool.
I don't know how, but I'm sure someone's got a YouTube video on how to do it. We'll figure it
Can
out.
somebody get Wikipedia on the phone? We've got some sources.
Wait, hey guys, Wikipedia, you get the inside scoop. We got this new compilation.
Yeah.
We had Tabula Rasa records on
What's it called?
Wikipedia.
We need
Easy.
an official page on this. In like
We
10
do,
years,
we do.
it'll be like the Wikipedia featured page for a day.
That'd be great.
Yeah.
I would love that.